Do you have a paranormal encounter you'd like to share with us? Send us an email with your story for a chance of it being featured on Weird World. One of England's former industrial hubs, Stocksbridge, was the setting for one of the most well-known instances of police in the UK encountering the paranormal. It's among the rare cases of the paranormal that authorities have scrutinised, and it still remains unsolved to this day. During the latter part of the 1980s, authority made the decision to construct a bypass around Stocksbridge in order to reduce the high volume of traffic passing directly through the town. As soon as the building process commenced, a string of peculiar incidents began to emerge. In the lead-up to the most renowned of these events, several accounts surfaced. A jogger and his child witnessed a strange headless entity sprinting across their path. Meanwhile, a married couple driving near the bypass construction site observed a figure running across a field, hovering above the ground. These were just some of the numerous reports. However, ultimately, it would be the police's encounter with this strange presence which would become the most famous of these incidents. A presence which still lingers in the area to this day. During the late evening of September 8, 1987, two seasoned security personnel assigned to monitor the construction site of the bypass were on patrol duty. Despite their extensive tenure on the job, they had never been perturbed by any situation they had encountered in the past. Furthermore, they had previously worked the same shifts together, with each of them having a good understanding of the other. However, that night they witnessed something that would forever alter their perception of the area. As their patrol approached its conclusion, they chanced upon an odd sight. A group of children frolicking beneath an electrical pylon situated close to the construction site. Considering the time was after midnight on this chilly, damp evening, it seemed completely unreasonable that any parent would have permitted their children to be outside. Yet this sizable group of kids seemed to be enjoying themselves as if it were an everyday occurrence. Not only this, but the youngsters were situated some distance from the town's residences, which were over a mile away. They also appeared to be adorned in attire resembling that of a bygone era. Perplexed, the two guards continued to observe the children's antics for a brief period before concluding that the area was too hazardous for them to remain and that they should escort them back to their respective homes. Exiting their vehicle, the guards strode towards the children, their line of vision obstructed temporarily by heaps of earth and rubble from the ongoing construction. Upon arriving at the spot where they had only seconds earlier glimpsed them, they discovered that the area was completely vacant. More surprisingly, there were no indications whatsoever that anyone at all had been present there. There were no footprints, no signs of crushed foliage, nor any sounds one might expect emanating from the distance. Stranger still, the vicinity surrounding the pylon was a flat open expanse and lacking any form of cover. Consequently, had the children dispersed and fled the scene, the guards would have undoubtedly detected them. Unsettled by what had just occurred, they went back to their vehicle. It wasn't until the following day, when they conversed with some of the builders who resided in the surrounding area, that the incident truly began to unnerve them. The builders, too, recounted hearing the laughter and games of children during the dead of night, and even witnessing them beneath the very same pylon. The following evening, at approximately the same time, the two security guards were on patrol once again, traversing from the town towards the same area beneath the construction bypass. Suddenly, they believed they glimpsed an individual at the construction site. Suspecting it could potentially be a copper thief attempting to pilfer the wiring from the street lights, they hastened towards the site to apprehend them. Upon arriving at the construction site, the guards noticed a figure that resembled a man dressed in the garb of a monk. Recalling the eerie sensation they had experienced the previous night, they approached him in their vehicle and illuminated him with their high beams in an attempt to verify their observation. Upon doing so, they claimed that the light penetrated through the figure, failing to cast any shadow, before it abruptly vanished before their eyes. Overwhelmed with horror, the guards frantically fled back to their station and called their superior, Peter Owens, to join them at the location. He arrived at approximately 4 o'clock in the morning and recounted entering the chamber to see the two large, hardy men whom he'd worked with for many years, quivering and ashen-faced. One of them was even said to have been whimpering candidly. They recounted the incidents of the previous 2 nights to Owens and begged for his assistance. Owens, unsure of what to do, contacted the local police station for help. Unfortunately, Chief Ellis dismissed the matter and suggested seeking the aid of a priest instead of the police. However, Chief Ellis would be unaware of the repercussions that these remarks would have when he received a call from the local parish priest the following day. The priest asked him to intervene and remove 2 frightened security guards who had arrived early in the morning, demanding that he conduct an exorcism on the construction site. The guards had practically broken down the door and were unwilling to leave, claiming that the location was under the control of a sinister force. Having been notified of the incident, Chief Ellis resolved to investigate and find out the truth behind the strange occurrences. He enlisted the help of Special Constable John Beat, and together they made their way to the construction site that very night. Although both were initially sceptical, their curiosity was piqued, and they arrived at the same spot where the guards had claimed to see the figure. As they spoke, they found the situation somewhat amusing, believing that the guards had simply let their imaginations run wild. The town of Stocksbridge had a deep superstitious history, full of strange folklore involving countless stories of encounters with the unexplained, much of which was undoubtedly known to the guards. One such story told of a disillusioned monk who had left the church and was buried in unholy earth, cursed to roam aimlessly forever. It was a chilling tale, but the notion that it had reached a point where 2 police officers were investigating it seemed absurd to Chief Ellis and Special Constable Beat. They found the whole situation amusing and were convinced that there was a logical explanation for the guards' strange sightings. The evening was mild, so they had lowered the car windows to let the breeze flow through as they sat there, observing the area without any anticipation. However, after some time, they noticed something strange happening on the bridge before them. It seemed like there was some kind of motion occurring on its surface. Wanting to be certain that they were not hallucinating, Ellis stepped out of the car and proceeded to investigate. As he climbed up the ladder to the top of the bridge, Chief Ellis wondered if there was any truth to the guards' stories. His scepticism was short-lived, however, as he soon discovered the source of their terror: a loose tarpaulin flapping in the breeze. After weighing it down to prevent it flapping further, he descended the ladder and returned to the car, where he and Constable Beat shared a laugh at their own expense for being frightened by a simple sheet of plastic. At that moment, Ellis started sensing a strange feeling that he later described as someone walking over his grave. The temperature in the area dropped suddenly and a chill ran up his spine. Suspecting it was just the wind, he asked to roll up the car windows, but the sensation only intensified as they did so. In an instant, it felt as though someone had materialized next to him, right outside of the car. Ellis pivoted quickly and was jolted to see a torso so near that it appeared to be pressed against the window. The figure's clothing was visible to Ellis, who described a white V pattern formed by the person's shirt over an undershirt. The moment it occurred to Ellis what he had just seen, the figure swiftly vanished and instantly reappeared beside John Beat. John let out a startled cry and attempted to move away from the figure, but it had already vanished again in a matter of seconds. Filled with terror, Ellis leapt out of the car, expecting to catch what he hoped and presumed to be a mischievous prankster. However, there was no one in sight. He checked the gravel for footprints, listened carefully for the sound of someone fleeing, and scanned both sides of the embankments, but there was no sign of anyone. He even got down on his belly and looked under the car, but there was no one hiding there either. Frightened, the duo concluded it was time to depart. Ellis hopped back into the car and made an effort to start it up, but the engine wouldn't turn on. He made repeated attempts, growing increasingly distressed as each effort proved fruitless. Meanwhile, the eerie sensation of coldness continued to intensify. After multiple frantic efforts, he was finally able to start the car, and they made the decision to proceed to the main construction site to regroup. As they arrived, they attempted to communicate with the police station via radio, but encountered nothing but quavering static. Suddenly, there was a deafening thud at the rear of the car, as if it had been struck by something. They spun around to locate the source of the sound, but to no avail. However, the banging persisted, sounding like the repetitive thumping of a hammer or pickaxe on the car's metal exterior. Completely unnerved, yet resolute to discover the source of the disturbance, Ellis cautiously opened the car door to inspect the surroundings. Suddenly, another deafening thud rattled the vehicle on its suspension. Completely losing his composure, Ellis frantically shut the door and attempted to start the car again as it continued to shake from the impact of the blows. It took several attempts before the engine finally roared to life. With his foot on the accelerator, he sped out of the construction site, desperate to escape the violent and malevolent presence that dwelled there. Upon their return to the station, the two men appeared visibly shaken and drained of colour. They recounted to their fellow officers the harrowing experience they had just endured, detailing every chilling moment. To document the incident officially, they composed reports which to this day are accessible and available to be read. Ellis detailed the terror he experienced in the report, saying, "It was not that which one has when you're about to encounter danger, but worse. It was the kind where you have absolutely no control over, a feeling of dread." Even now, there are accounts of spectral sightings at the Stocksbridge bypass. However, no rational explanation for what the two security guards or Ellis and Beat witnessed on those fateful nights, nor any of the other reported accounts, has ever been uncovered.